Garlic may look like one of the simplest crops in the garden, but hidden inside every garlic bulb is an amazing little growing system. One healthy clove, planted correctly, can develop into an entirely new garlic bulb with multiple cloves of its own. And the secret is not some complicated gardening trick, it is choosing the right clove, giving it the right soil, planting it at the right depth, and allowing it enough time to develop. So if you have a few garlic cloves sitting in your kitchen, don't throw them away. With the right approach, you can turn a small amount of planting material into a harvest that can last for months. Garlic is normally grown from individual cloves rather than true seed, and each planted clove produces one new bulb. The first step is choosing your garlic carefully. If your goal is large, healthy bulbs, don't simply grab the smallest cloves from the garlic head. Look for large, firm, healthy cloves with no signs of rot, damage, or disease. In general, larger planting cloves tend to produce larger mature bulbs because they begin with a greater reserve of stored energy. This is why experienced growers often save their biggest and healthiest garlic bulbs for planting instead of using them all in the kitchen. Another important point is that garlic varieties behave differently depending on climate. Hardneck garlic is commonly favored in colder regions and produces a central flower stalk called a scape, while softneck garlic generally has excellent storage ability and can be productive in suitable climates. Store-bought garlic is not always the best planting material because the variety may have been grown for a completely different climate, or may have been treated or stored in a way that affects sprouting. For the most reliable results, use planting garlic from a reputable garden supplier or a variety known to perform well in your region. Now comes one of the most important steps: preparing the cloves. Keep the papery skin around each clove intact and separate the bulb into individual cloves shortly before planting. Don't separate the entire bulb weeks in advance. Choose the large outer cloves for planting and leave damaged or diseased cloves out. Look at the shape of the clove carefully. The pointed end is the growing tip, while the flatter end is where the roots develop. When you plant it, the pointed end must face upward and the flat root end must face downward. It sounds simple, but planting cloves upside down can make emergence and growth less efficient. Next, prepare the soil. Garlic doesn't like sitting in heavy, waterlogged ground. It performs best in fertile, well-drained soil with plenty of organic matter and good sunlight. If your soil is heavy clay, compacted, or drains poorly, improve it with mature compost and consider using a raised bed. Good drainage is especially important because excessive moisture can encourage bulb diseases and rot. Garlic also needs a sunny, growing location, so choose a place where the plant can receive plenty of direct sunlight throughout the growing season. Before planting, remove weeds and loosen the soil so the developing roots and bulb have room to expand. Now let's plant the cloves. A common recommendation is to place the cloves roughly 1 to 3 inches deep, depending on soil type, climate, and variety. In many home garden situations, around 1 to 2 inches is sufficient, while somewhat deeper planting may be useful in certain conditions. Place the pointed end upward, cover it gently with soil, and avoid compacting the ground too heavily. Give each clove enough space. Depending on the variety and your target bulb size, spacing of roughly 3 to 6 inches between cloves is common. Wider spacing generally gives each plant more room for sunlight, air movement, roots, and bulb development, while planting too densely tends to produce smaller bulbs. Rows can be spaced according to the size of your garden and how you plan to weed and water. And here is where timing becomes important. In many climates, garlic is traditionally planted in autumn so the cloves can establish roots before winter and experience a period of cold that helps many varieties form good bulbs. But the exact planting window depends heavily on your local climate and variety. In regions where winters are mild, spring planting can also be possible with suitable varieties, so don't blindly copy a planting date from another country. Instead, choose a variety suited to your climate and follow the local planting window. The goal is to give the plant enough time to develop a strong root system and eventually form a mature bulb. After planting, one simple technique can make a big difference: mulch. A layer of clean straw, dry leaves, or another suitable organic mulch can help protect cloves from temperature fluctuations, reduce weeds, conserve soil moisture, and protect the planting area. In colder climates, mulch is particularly useful during winter, but don't use thick, wet material that stays waterlogged around the plants. The goal is protection and moisture control, not creating a damp environment where disease can develop. Once the garlic begins growing, the job becomes surprisingly simple. Garlic does not like heavy weed competition, so keep the growing area relatively weed-free. Water when the soil becomes dry, especially during active growth, but avoid constantly saturated soil. Consistent moisture is useful during bulb development, while excessive water can cause problems. As the plants mature, gradually reduce watering and allow the soil to become somewhat drier before harvest. Garlic also benefits from adequate fertility, particularly nitrogen during its vegetative growth, but fertilizer should be based on your soil condition rather than blindly adding large amounts. Too much fertilizer is not a shortcut to giant bulbs. Good soil preparation, sunlight, spacing, and consistent care matter just as much. If you are growing hardneck garlic, you may eventually see something unusual, a curling flower stalk emerging from the center of the plant. This is called a garlic scape. Many gardeners harvest these tender scapes before they become tough, and removing them can redirect the plant's resources toward bulb development. The scapes themselves are also edible and can be used in cooking. Softneck garlic usually doesn't produce these traditional hardneck scapes, which is one of the visible differences between the two types. Then comes the moment every gardener waits for, the harvest. Don't harvest simply because the calendar says it is time. Watch the leaves. As the garlic approaches maturity, the lower leaves begin turning yellow and drying, while some upper leaves remain green. When the plant shows these signs of maturity, carefully loosen the soil and lift the bulbs, rather than pulling aggressively on the leaves. Different varieties and climates mature at different times, so the exact harvest day can vary. Harvesting too early can mean smaller, less developed bulbs, while leaving mature bulbs in wet soil too long can increase the risk of deterioration. But the job isn't finished when you pull the garlic from the ground. One of the most important steps is curing. Don't immediately wash the freshly harvested bulbs. Instead, gently remove excess soil and place the garlic in a dry, well-ventilated location away from strong, direct sunlight. Allow the bulbs to dry thoroughly so the outer layers become papery and protective. Once properly cured, trim the roots and tops as appropriate for the variety and storage method. Properly cured garlic can be stored for many months, with softneck varieties often having particularly good storage life. Keep the finished bulbs in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place rather than somewhere warm and humid. And this is what makes garlic such a rewarding crop. You don't need a huge garden to start. You can grow it in a traditional garden bed, a raised bed, or even a suitable container as long as the container is deep enough and has good drainage. The principle remains the same: healthy cloves, fertile, well-drained soil, enough sunlight, correct planting depth, enough space, controlled watering, weed management, and patience. A single clove doesn't magically create dozens of bulbs, but that one clove can become one mature bulb containing several new cloves, and those cloves can become next season's planting material. In other words, your first harvest can become the beginning of the next growing cycle. So the next time you look at a garlic bulb, don't just see an ingredient for your kitchen. See the potential for an entire future harvest. Choose the largest healthy cloves, plant them pointy side up, give them rich but well-drained soil, plenty of sunlight, enough room, and consistent but not excessive moisture. Protect them with mulch when appropriate, control weeds, watch for scapes if you're growing hardneck garlic, and wait patiently until the leaves tell you that harvest time has arrived. Then cure the bulbs properly, store them carefully, and save your best cloves for the next planting. One clove becomes one bulb, one harvest becomes a seed stalk for another season, and with every cycle, a small garden can keep producing its own supply of fresh garlic. Plant it once, grow it patiently, harvest it carefully, and let one little clove start a whole new harvest. Thanks for watching.